Senator Milgo? Is she here? Huh? Is she there? Senator Milgo? Majority Leader? Huh? Notice of motion on COVID here?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to give the following notice that pursuant to Standing Order 187 and 189, the Senate approves the nomination of Senator Dr. Christopher Andrew Lagat, MP, to serve in the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya, to take up the vacancy occasioned by the resignation of Senator Johnson Sakaja, CBS MP.
What's your point of order, Senator Wambua?
Mr. Speaker, you know, you've just given directions on this COVID thing, Mr. Speaker. And for the second time, I've seen the majority whip going to the dispatch box and speaking with his mask off. Mr. Speaker, that mic is a shared facility. Can you direct Mr. Speaker that we use that mic properly? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, I think, honorable senators, we are taking some matters lightly, but Whip, let us take this matter seriously, please. Senator Milgo?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wish to give notice of the following motion. Development of daycare policy in the counties and Department of Basic Education. That aware that Constitution of Kenya, Article 53, affirms that children have basic rights, including the rights to education, nutrition, shelter, health care, and parental care provisions that are aligned with those cited in both the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Africa Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, to which Kenya is a signatory. Concerned that the current status of daycare facilities in the country are
Senator
not child-friendly.
Senator, order. Senator, put on your mask, please.
Thank you. I'm advised. Okay. Concerned that the current status of daycare facilities in the country are not child-friendly, uninhabitable, and there is need to bridge this gap to capture the playgroup class in the new 26333 curriculum that is replacing the 32-year-old 844 system, acknowledging that most parents, in conjunction with the Ministry of Education, to ensure that counties allocate at least 10% of their budget on early child development education, ECD, towards this vulnerable group, and B, policy is developed to incorporate the needs of children who are less than 3 years of age. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Senator Duiga, you wanted to lay.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay on the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 12 May 2020. A report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on the Livestock and Livestock Products Marketing Board, Board, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2019.
Okay. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Deferred.
Order number 8, motion, approval of a senator to serve in the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya.
That's a procedural motion, so it should not take a lot of time.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that I replace the former chairman of the ad hoc committee on COVID, my brother, Mr. Sakaja, who resigned on his own motion, and replace him with Dr. Lagat, senator. And I think that my
Senator,
brother,
we move the motion.
yes, I beg to move the motion. Yeah, I apologize. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the following motion that pursuant to Standing Order 187 and 189, the Senate approves the nomination of Senator Dr. Christopher Andrew Lagat, MP, to serve in the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya to take up the vacancy occasioned by the resignation of Senator Johnson Sakaja, CBS MP. Mr. Speaker, sir, Senator for Nairobi, Senator Johnson Sakaja, resigned from that committee, and we thought of giving the opportunity to Dr. Andrew Lagat, who is very well educated, very competent, and we strongly believe that he's going to do a good work once he gets into that committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, he will also bring a dimension on the COVID situation in the Rift Valley region, which currently needs good representation in that committee, so that we can enrich the deliberations that will occur in that committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, the former member, that is Mr. Johnson Sakaja, Senator, sorry, I apologize, has done a good job, but we think that it's time now also we give Dr. Lagat that opportunity to also serve in that committee. Allow me to call Senator Cheriot to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to second this motion that has been tabled by the whip of a majority side, that is inviting Senate colleagues to approve the nomination of our colleague, Dr. Lagat, to serve in this COVID committee that was set up about 3 or 4 months ago. And up to this stage, I think they have furnished this house with about 7 or 8 reports. The only challenge that I have for Senator Dr. Lagat, as he joins this committee with the approval of the House, is that he ensures that actually their reports are actioned and they just don't become reports that fill up and gather dust in the Houses of Parliament. Senate colleagues have requested on many occasions, and this is a request that I had personally made to the chair who has resigned, that can we be furnished with all expenditure that various county governments has used. It is in my best interest as Senator for Kericho to know how much the county government of Kericho up to this particular point has spent in terms of preparation for all COVID-related activities. Because the reports that you're getting, Mr. Speaker, are disheartening, and this is a view that is shared by each of our Senate colleagues. At least that is a list that we could do, because we are a house of oversight. The second and the most important thing, and I raised this last week, Mr. Speaker, while we were debating the issues that were before this House, is that we keep on reading in the newspapers as colleagues in the Senate that County X has this number of isolation beds, this number of ICU beds. Can we be furnished with documents confirming or disputing that report as colleagues here? It is a shame that as senators in this House, we have to rely on newspaper readings to know the amount of preparedness, because some of these facilities you are not able to tell where the county governments have placed them, and it will be important to see the filings that they are giving to the ministry of the Ministry of Health, so that you counter-check and verify. Otherwise, somebody seated at Afya House may very well read that Bungoma County has 300 isolation beds that have been set up, but it is only Senator Moses Wetangula, when he reads and sees that these beds are stationed in a particular station, that will be able to tell the ministry that this is a fraud. And we know these are things that many of the governors who are in offices can do. Therefore, our colleague, Senator Dr. Langat, I wish you well as you serve in this committee. Bring in the vigor and the energy that you always known to portray. I know him also to be a man of prayer, so I know he will not be tempted or distracted by anything else. He will ensure that he serves to distinction. I mean, Senator Dr. Langat will always pray. On top of the Senate prayer, he will also pray for this country in the cause of, not to say that Senator Sakaja is not a prayerful man. He's a Christian like myself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question which is that pursuant to Standing Order 187 and 189, the Senate approves the nomination of Senator Dr. Christopher Andrew Langat, MP, to serve in the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya to take up the vacancy occasioned by the resignation of Senator Johnson Sakaja, CBS MP. I put the question which is that pursuant to Standing Order 187 and 189, the Senate approves the nomination of the Senate Dr. Christopher Andrew Langat, MP, to serve in the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya to take up the vacancy occasioned by the resignation of Senator Johnson Sakaja. As men are of that opinion, say aye. As men are contrary, you say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, approval of the third basis for revenue allocation among the county governments.
Before the chairman comes, I think Senator Khaniri did raise an issue on why we have the two similar motions. The matter came up in SBC, and SBC decided, ruled, or by consensus, said that in the event that the chairman again does not appear, there is a fallback position so that this issue is disposed of with. Now that, and the SBC did agree that if the chairman moves it and I can see him here, then the other one will technically be out. Senator Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I move the motion, Mr. Speaker, I want to note that indeed the Commission, the Parliamentary Service Commission, is doing well. I can see we have new uniform. We have some new ties that I don't know why I was never given one. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion, that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on the Finance and Budget of the third basis for revenue allocation among the county governments, laid on the table of the Senate on Monday, 30th July 2020, and that pursuant to Article 2017 of the Constitution, approves the proposed third basis for revenue allocation among the county governments as contained in the report. Mr. Speaker, I know this is an issue that the whole country is waiting that the Senate do make the approvals so that we can move on and develop the country or give services to our people. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution, Article 2017(1), really demands that we need to do exactly what the motion seeks to do, and that is to determine the basis for the allocation of revenue among the counties. Mr. Speaker, the first parliament, the 10th parliament in November 2012, did determine the revenue sharing formula for 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, 2016, 2017, while the 11th Parliament in 2016 determined the revenue for 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020. And the two have been in existence, Mr. Speaker. This motion seeks now to request the Senate to determine the sharing formula for the years 2020, 2021 to years 2024, 2025. Mr. Speaker, as it were, Article 2016(1), the Constitution provides the principal function of proposing the revenue sharing formula to CRA. And Mr. Speaker, the CRA, or the Commission of Revenue Allocation, did table a report or a proposal to the Senate on 30th April 2019. Mr. Speaker, further, Article 217(2) provides that in determining the basis of revenue sharing, the Senate shall take the criteria in Article 201(1) into account, request and consider recommendations from the Commission on Revenue Allocation, consult the county governors, the cabinet secretary responsible for finance and organization of county governments, and finally, and the fourth, invite the public, including professional bodies, to make submission to aid on the matter. Pursuant to this provision, Mr. Speaker, the committee, in considering the third basis, requests for equitable sharing among the invited a number of stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, we had the Commission of Revenue Allocation, Council of Governors, the National Treasury, county governments, Institute of Certified Public Accountants, that is ISPAC, International Budget Partnership, IB, Kenyan chapter, the Institute of Social Accountability, TISA, and the general public who are invited to give the views on the basis for the revenue sharing. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, once again, some of us and some members, some senators and their counties also did, county assemblies did submit the memorandum. I, for one, I did, and I think one other senator. Mr. Speaker, over the period, we have held a Kamukoji to deliberate on these issues, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, like in sharing all the revenues and resources, a number of issues were considered and are to be considered. And one of the issues that, Mr. Speaker, we considered as a committee are the parameters that had been proposed by the Commission of Revenue Allocation and which were given different weights. The parameters include health, agriculture, urban services, roads, and the parameter on other county services. Mr. Speaker, if you allow, I will just try to mention a few, to cut a close, not because I know senators will be debating on these issues. And Mr. Speaker, there has been a lot of consultation where senators, we were invited at Kempiske. We went there and the CRA commission, the commission did take us through the processes that we were undertaking in arriving in some of these parameters. At the same time, we were called at Bomas of Kenya, and we were also taken through how they arrived at some of these parameters and how they went through the econometrics or through the econometrics and the statistics of trying to give weight to ensure there is both equity and equitable distribution of the scarce resources. Mr. Speaker, the first parameter that the Commission of Revenue did propose and that we adopted as a committee is, and we gave it a weight of 20%, is the parameter of health. Mr. Speaker, this is a devolved function, and like we all agree, it is one of the very thorny issues that is facing our counties. Mr. Speaker, we have seen strikes, we have seen deplorable situations in our counties because of the health issues. Mr. Speaker, they say a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. So we want to make the counties more sustainable as a Senate when it comes to issues of health. And in this regard, we looked at the health parameter, and we gave it 20% of the revenue that is to be shared, Mr. Speaker. And we had 20% be based on healthy facility gap, 60% based on 3 years average number of primary care health visits, levels 2 and 3 healthy facilities. Those are the lower levels of facilities, the health centers, and the clinics. And then we gave the other 20% is based on 3-year average inpatient in levels 4 and levels 5. Mr. Speaker, we don't need to overemphasize that even given these issues of COVID-19, we have seen counties are even unable to be able to provide the 300 beds that are required. So it was important, Mr. Speaker, for us to look at that parameter and be able to agree with the CRA, but improve on it, that it is an important parameter. Mr. Speaker, the other parameter is agriculture, which is also a devolved function. And what we did on it is we agreed that when it comes to agriculture, it involves all spectrum of issues to do with agriculture. May it be fishing, may it be cattle or animal husbandry, talk about sugar farming, rice farming, all that, Mr. Speaker. And what we did was to looking at the protocols that govern, international protocols that govern some of the issues that we look at, is that we gave it 12% as a weight. And Mr. Speaker, this is based on households. So we are saying whether you are keeping camels, whether you are doing fishing, whether you are doing chicken farming, whatever it is that you are doing that involves farming in whatever nature, we are saying the parameter takes care of the services. And more so, Mr. Speaker, especially for the extension services. Mr. Speaker, the other parameter is other services. And this, Mr. Speaker, is a parameter that includes functions which are practiced and by the county government. Among these is pre-primary education, the ECDs, the village polytechnic, Mr. Speaker, home craft centers, children facility, cultural activities, public entertainment like bullfighting in Kakamega, and the likes, and taking care of issues of drugs, pornography, and the likes. And this is a parameter, Mr. Speaker, that we gave 16% so that counties can be able to offer services and even do some preventive measures on some of the issues that I have highlighted. Mr. Speaker, the number 4 is the basic share. Mr. Speaker, we know counties have operational costs. They must survive in one way or another. And so they must meet the operational costs. And Mr. Speaker, what we did is that we decided 20% of the shareable revenue be shared equal to all the counties. But Mr. Speaker, we took 1% of the allocation to be shared on inverse of 2019 population census. This, Mr. Speaker, is to take care of the counties that have very low population, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other one is the poverty. Mr. Speaker, this is something that also raises emotions. And one of the things that come up, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about poverty is that it has been agreed and confirmed. And the Kenya Integrated Household Budget Survey of 2015-2016 did provide data on how and the numbers that we are saying are below poverty level, or the so-called the poor. Mr. Speaker, on that parameter, we gave it 14%, and the sharing was based on parameters for developmental needs, economic disparities, among other. Mr. Speaker, we all know when it comes to poverty, we could be saying that the poorest parts of maybe, let's say, Makueni, for that matter, there could be some poor people. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we have the urban poor. The urban poor could even be poorer than the
Let's consult in low tones.
poor people who are in the rural areas, Mr.
Let's
Speaker.
consult in low tones.
And what comes up is that the parameter and using the data that was given was able to distribute the 14%, taking care of the inequalities of the urban poor, so that we don't continue marginalizing the urban poor with the guys that we have
Senators.
the poorest
Order.
in the rural areas, Mr.
Sure,
Speaker.
let me interrupt you. Honorable Senators, I'm giving directives that must be followed. This is a house of order. The following senators, you are sitting in places that are not designated. Senator Omanga, Senator Lokorio, Senator Wamatangi, and Senator Nyamunga. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like I was saying, Mr. Speaker, we don't have to fall in the trap of marginalizing or systematic marginalizing the urban poor in the guise of saying that the poorer are always in the rural areas. A person who is poor in the urban may not be able to afford any food, must pay rent, etc., Mr. Speaker. So that parameter, we agreed with the CRA because they had done a lot of statistics, they had done a lot of logarithms, and a lot of econometrics to arrive at distribution of the 14%. Mr. Speaker, the other parameter is LAD. And Mr. Speaker, this has been also been contentious, even in when we try to talk to our colleagues and in the Kamukoji. And Mr. Speaker, we need to agree that when we talk about LAD, and this also came out very well through CRA, is that we are talking about the cost of service delivery, Mr. Speaker. And the cost of delivery, Mr. Speaker, is a question of looking at how do we offer services, regardless of the type or the shape of a county. Arguments have been put forward, Mr. Speaker, that probably you cannot be able to create a radius or to calculate the radius of a irregular shape, Mr. Speaker. We want to dispel the myth. As long as you have the area of the shape that you want to take, you can be able to calculate the radius, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what we are saying in attributing this parameter is that how much does it cost you from moving from point to A to B to other services? If an extension officer or a surgeon is moving from point A to B, what is the distance? Instead of using square kilometers, we are saying what distance does that person travel so that they can be able to offer those services? And that's all we are saying about that issue of blood. Mr. Speaker, the other one is urban service. Mr. Speaker, the urban service, we give it 4%. We are aware, Mr. Speaker, that through other means and through other donor funding, there is quite concentration on helping the urban centers. And we believe, and a good example is Nairobi Metropolitan Services, where the national government has come in and can always come in to chip in and help the urban areas. So we decided to give the urban service parameter 4%. Mr. Speaker, the roads is number 8 as a parameter, and the measure should be rural access index. And this is information that was given by the Laws Board, published in 2018. Mr. Speaker, for purposes of this, we actually used, as it were, and the data that had been given in 2018, we haven't even updated it to 2019, Mr. Speaker, so that we can still stabilize the issues of sharing. Mr. Speaker, last but not least is the physical effort, Mr. Speaker, where we are trying to encourage counties, Mr. Speaker, to be able to generate and to increase the generated revenue, Mr. Speaker. And we gave it 1%. Mr. Speaker, last as a parameter.
Social distancing, honorable senators. Honorable senators. Honorable senators. Senator Khaniri, social distancing, please.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, protect me because the way they are breathing, I'm getting scared. There is vapor coming around, and I'm getting scared, especially from the ladies' lounge. Mr. Speaker, the physical prudence, Mr. Speaker, is the last parameter, and this is to give incentives to counties so that they can take issues of audit a bit seriously. Mr. Speaker, issues of audits, issues of governance, and the issues of optimization of resources by way of value for money and performance audit are issues that need to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. And so on that one, we gave it 1%, and if you get unqualified opinion, you get money. If you establish county budget and economic forum, you get some money. That % of actual counted expenditure on development. Mr. Speaker, the law is very clear that that % of the money is going to counties need to be brought back for development, Mr. Speaker. Establishment of internal audit, Mr. Speaker, is Mr. Speaker, another consideration when we looked at the physical, when we looked at the prudence effort, prudence parameter. Mr. Speaker, the committee is cognizant of the prevailing circumstances and impact caused by COVID-19 pandemic on the county government. Secondly, the committee knows the need to take into account the provisions of Article 2031K of the Constitution, which provides that in considering the basis for revenue sharing, there is need for flexibility in responding to emergencies and other temporary needs based on similar objective criteria. The committee acknowledges that the financial year in which the third basis of revenue sharing is set to commence is already ongoing. Thus, the committee recommends to the House that the third basis be approved, but its application be commenced from the financial year 2021-2022. This recommendation of the committee on the third basis for sharing revenue allocated to the county government level pursuant to Article 218 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude and as I seek support from the senators, I think, Mr. Speaker, we have had debates of gains and losses, Mr. Speaker. But I think as a Senate, we are also losing it. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have been in this Senate and we have proposed increase in the shareable revenue, where we have participated even in mediation, and we have been, as a Senate, been unable to push for the increase of the cake to be shared, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to shift our gear from saying who gets what and who gets what, who loses what. Mr. Speaker, we need to ask ourselves, this country is ours. We need to agree that this country is ours and ask ourselves, as a Senate, as registrators, instead of, because even tomorrow or whatever, and Mr. Speaker, we have tried a lot of simulations. over 20 simulations, Mr. Speaker, and that the committee, even before some of us joined, had 1 year. They could not even, of course, even agree on any one formula to table in this Senate. We took it on ourselves, and we decided as a new committee, Mr. Speaker, we must bring something to the Senate to deliberate on. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask my fellow colleagues and senators, the distinguished senators, to try and shift. Maybe we would say, let's have a paradigm shift on how we look at some of these emotional issues and ask ourselves, is it the duty of the Senate to ensure that the cake to be shared is increased? The answer is yes, Mr. Speaker. So as much as we argue or whatever it is that we do, we must force the vertical sharing of revenue to ensure that resources for functions. So that if a function is devolved, let's say for instance, health, it is the duty of the Senate as legislators, as elected people, to ensure that money for the devolved function actually goes to the devolved functions. So, Mr. Speaker, I would be urging my fellow senators to come up and support the formula, and then we move forward and say, moving forward, this is the minimum that we can never take to be taken to the counties. And Mr. Speaker, from where we sit as a committee, and the minimum that should ever be taken to the counties should never be less than 350 billion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that we also need to ask ourselves is that prior to the devolution, county councils, including the city of Nairobi, used to meet its obligations. They used to pay salaries, they used to do tarmac, they used to collect garbage, and they used to collect a lot of money. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, a county like Murang'a is said that it was so rich in terms of revenue generation that at one point in time it threatened to loan money to Tanzania. So what happened? Now that we are getting money and we still don't have enough money to offer services. Mr. Speaker, my proposal and the proposal that we would be putting on the table is that let us encourage the county governments to put up their socks in terms of internally generated revenue. Mr. Speaker, the CRA and other bodies have tried to carry out a survey of the potential that these counties have. And they looked at 6 parameters, that is property rates, business permit, building permits, outdoor advertising, liquor licenses. Mr. Speaker, if Nairobi, for instance, only can be able to match that, it will collect over 80 billion. If all the counties who are collecting less than 20% in those parameters were able to put up their socks and just get 60%, we would have almost 300 billion generated by the counties, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we need counties to be innovative. We need counties to trade with each other. We need counties to identify their comparative advantage and be able to say, we as County X, we are good in producing this, and we can be able to trade with Block X of counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, innovation includes establishing disease-free zones for goats and cattle that can be exported. Statistically, Mr. Speaker, Somaliland currently is exporting over 3 million goats to Saudi Arabia, and with all their problems, Mr. Speaker. So all that I'm saying is, Mr. Speaker, we need to be innovative and be able to generate more money, be able to negotiate and legislate for more increased revenue, and also, Mr. Speaker, be able to pass the Equalization Fund bill, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, or many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do move the motion and ask the distinguished senator for Migoli to second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to second this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that my committee that is chaired by Senator Kibiru is a committee that took over this matter when this kind of standoff, this kind of pulling apart had already gained root and was grounded in our preceding committee. That's why it was not possible for the committee that we took over from to deliver a report based on consensus for the period that they were in office, about 1 year. Mr. Speaker, I do not wish to repeat the details contained in the report that my chair has read, because that will be repetitive and it will be of no use. I also want to underscore the fact that this report has been with members for some time, so members are fairly familiar with its content, with its details, and with the resolutions that we made as a committee. Now, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say a few things that I hope members will take into consideration when they are making a decision on this matter. Mr. Speaker, what people think is the greatest Senate in the world is found in the United States of America. Those who study history, politics, and law will remember the story of the senatorial saucer. This story is about some discussion between the first president of the US, George Washington, and the third president, Thomas Jefferson, in 1872. Those two fellas said that the need to have two chambers is premised upon the fact that one chamber initiates legislation that is extremely hot as the formula we are discussing here. Another chamber, just like the saucer, is the one which cools it, is the one which moderates it, so that the public can consume a cool and sweet legislation. So, Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, we find ourselves in a very unique position. We must cool emotions in this nation. We must cool every feeling that would divide us. So we find ourselves in what the US found itself in 1872 of establishing two chambers, and one chamber, specifically the Senate, is supposed to be cool, it is supposed to be moderate, it's supposed to unify people. Mr. Speaker, that is against the background of diversity and leadership. This Senate is so diverse in terms of representation. Economic situations in Mandera is quite different to the one that is obtaining in Nairobi. It's so different from the one that is obtaining in Migori and in any other place. So, Mr. Speaker, what is key is to try to come up with the spirit that would capture the diverse feelings that we have as a nation. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge colleagues as we debate this matter to try and agree to what our committee did to come up with something that would accommodate the diversity that we have in this nation, and also to remember just right here in Africa. There is a famous author, Albert Chinua Achebe, now deceased professor. Chinua Achebe, in his book, The Arrow of God, wrote this, Mr. Speaker. He said about a character who was attempting to carry water and fire in the same mouth. As a Senate, we must also attempt to carry water and fire in the same mouth and make sure that the water does not extinguish the fire, and the fire or the embers keep blowing. That is the delicate situation in which we find ourselves, and that is what we must do. So, Mr. Speaker, the transition arrangement here is an attempt at making sure that as we vote and pass the formula that has been the subject matter of discourse in this House, we all have a way of ensuring that there is no shock, that there is no suffering, and that there is no loss, and we are able to move together as a nation. Life is based on optimism. We must be optimistic as a nation that the economy will roar again, it will grow, and as long as we keep on praying to God and hoping that progress will be made, some more money will come to this nation, some more money will come to counties, and when this formula is applied, that more money will soften and will heal those who may feel hurt if it is implemented immediately. So on the basis of hope for this nation, on the basis of expectation that there will be growth, and on the basis of understanding that we represent diversity, yet we need to progress, Mr. Speaker, I believe the report of the committee is a good report, and I believe that all members of goodwill, in the spirit of negotiations and compromise, should support the report, and if there is need to improve it, but the spirit of negotiations and compromise should be part and parcel of the proposed improvement. The spirit of coming or working together as diversity should be part of the improvement that may be suggested. So, Mr. Speaker, knowing that members really want to speak to this subject matter, and knowing that members want to say something, I want to conclude by saying, as you think of your county alone, think of other counties also. If we were to ask members to come up with the best formula that they think of, each member, including the member for Migori, has a formula. But I have to give away certain things and also accept certain suggestions from different quarters. So in that spirit, and in the spirit that the chair, Charles Kibiru, has moved it, and in the spirit that I have proposed, I wish to second the motion that is urging the House to adopt this report, and I yield, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, Order Senator Ongeri. I now propose the question, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the third basis for revenue allocation among the county governments laid on the table of the Senate on Monday, 13th July 2020, and that pursuant to Article 217 of the Constitution approves the proposed third basis for revenue allocation among the county governments as contained in the report. Senator Malala. Senator Malala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 105. Mr. Speaker, the matter before Senate this afternoon is a very serious matter. Is a matter that is very emotive, and the whole country is waiting to see how Senate is going to determine and bring to a close this matter. Mr. Speaker, it is in that spirit that we received the order paper, and on the order paper we had this motion together with the amendments by Senator Sakaja. But as we were walking into this house, Mr. Speaker, we have seen a further amendment or a proposed amendment by Senator Irungu Kangata.
Wear your mask, Senator Malala.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Speaker, it is with that reason that honorable members feel that they have not thoroughly gone through the amendment as proposed by the Chief Whip, Senator Irungu Kangata, and therefore request that under Standing Order 105, that we adjourn the debate for 20 minutes for consultation, and then we come back when we have read deeply the content of the amendment as moved by Senator Irungu Kangata. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to move that the debate be now adjourned for 20 minutes and call upon Senator Irungu Kangata to second.
Merudi.
Hata shindwa na
Mzee.